Hello and welcome to the Death Chicks. I'm Misty Lynn and I'm here with my co-host Patty Burgess, and this is the Afterlife series. And part of this series, today's show we're going to be talking about murder and suicide. And I'll tell you why we're talking about this today. I live in a small Arctic community, and this happened in my community, and I thought I had this death thing down. And as I was saying to Patty and Rachel just moments ago, you know, you think you have something, and then something happens, and you realize, wow, I'm not quite there yet. So when this happened, I reached out to Rachel, and she spoke with me about murder and suicide, and she helped me to make sense of it and come to terms with it. So we thought that as part of this Afterlife series, we'd bring in Rachel and have her discuss this taboo topic, and we're really looking forward to hearing. I'm looking forward to hearing again to what she has to say, because her message is one that you can never really hear enough of. It's a place that brings comfort in what is perhaps the most tragic things that can affect any of our lives. So I'm going to pass it over to Patty, and Patty's going to introduce Rachel, and we'll dive right in. Thanks for joining us.
Very good, Misty. Thanks so much. Yes, this is a really, it's a tough topic, but I think it's also one that people who are interested and open and learning more about how to integrate these kinds of things that we hear about in the news every day, or that may touch us personally, it's so important to talk about. And we've had Rachel on before, and Rachel, we're thrilled to have you back. Let me share a little bit about Rachel, and then we're going to jump right in. Rachel is an internationally known spiritual teacher, artist, and business mentor, and she works with the helpers and healers of the world who feel a calling to live their purpose, and teaches them how to create a lucrative business based on their passions and talents. One of the reasons we wanted to talk to Rachel is because she grew up seeing angels and talking with her spirit guides, so that she's always known that there's more to this world than just death and taxes. You know, her connection to the spirit world has shown her firsthand that creating the life you want is really more energetic than it is linear, and that she's had the connections that many of us wish we had, and has received detailed information from the other side, her guides and her helpers, that are not of this physical plane. And because of her long-time connection to the other side, we wanted to talk to Rachel today and get her take on this really tough question about what happens to those souls who kill themselves or kill others. And I think why this is important is because, you know, survivors of these tragic deaths often are lost, and then they're grieving mightily, and perhaps some of the information we get today can go a long way towards healing those left behind. So, Rachel, welcome. We're so thrilled that you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here. I think this is something that doesn't really get much airplay, and I'm really happy to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to start out with really was sort of to frame this whole conversation, you know, why we want to talk about it is because we know that there's a lot of resistance to talking about these things. It's kind of a hush topic. Even within the death community, that's sort of the, you know, we can talk about predictable deaths, and when we know that there's a death from, say, cancer, and we can watch this decline happen. But when something happens suddenly, as in a murder or death at you know, one's own hand, it rocks everybody's world. So, but I wonder why the resistance to talking about this and the messages from the other side that can be very, very healing, because as we were talking about pre-show, you know, when polled, it's like this really high number in the high 90s of people who believe in God, people who if not God as a traditional kind of God, believe in a higher power. Yet when we're talking about getting messages and healing from the other side, it's sort of like, whoa, you know, maybe it's dismissed or discounted. So I wonder if you could start us out speaking about that, and let us know your take on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I definitely understand that taboo of talking about or believing in messages from the other side, because I was raised Catholic and, you know, went to church and saw the belief in God, the supernatural, right? Like, we eat Christ's body, we drink his blood, and that's a very supernatural kind of thing. And yet at the same time, it was, blasphemy to talk about ghosts being real. And so, growing up psychic and seeing ghosts and everything and seeing angels, I was really confused about that. And it just seems like a lot of us, societally, religiously, are conditioned to believe that that's not possible, even though those institutions are basically, promoting the supernatural, and that that's the basis of the religion. So I think it's just a confusion that we all have, that we're taught that some supernatural stuff is normal and okay, and some is bad and dangerous even. And it kind of brings up the whole Ouija board topic. It's like the connection to the supernatural that you're trying to do is always going to be dangerous or bad. So I think we've just been conditioned to disbelieve and be afraid of things that we're doing on our own.
Exactly. Interesting. So, again, also, if you could share with us a little bit about how you came to understand this. You said you grew up, not everybody does that, growing up seeing angels or spirit guides, and was that fearful for you, or was it just natural? If you can share a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, my first experiences were a little fearful. The first time I ever saw an angel, I was terrified. I had no idea what it was, but it was just basically coming down and kissing me and my friends on our foreheads, and so there was nothing to be afraid of. But as a little kid, something's coming in and I'm trying to go to sleep. It's pretty frightening, but all the other experiences I had were extremely positive, and talking with my guides, it was almost like I didn't even have a choice. It was just my best friend showing up, so that was really good. I did have some scary encounters in high school, but that was pretty different. That wasn't from beings that I know. Just like how there are, friends and relatives and loved ones in life, there are also strangers in the other world, the afterworld, whatever you want to call it. And so
sometimes scary family members in real life. So
exactly, yeah. So you want to know who you're talking to, obviously, when you are talking to those here on Earth and those who are not on Earth.
Mm-hmm. And Rachel, how did you first connect with, or if you recall, people who have done atrocious things in their life on Earth? And what's your understanding of what happens when they die?
Yeah, so to talk about people who do quote-unquote bad things on Earth, we kind of need to go up a level so that when I talk about it, it doesn't sound like I'm condoning or not having compassion for victims, because how things work on this level, on our Earth plane, like me and you talking as humans, as friends, is very different than how we are in the afterlife. So basically, we're at like ground floor here, and to talk about this really in the way that would bring light to it, we have to go up to, say, the penthouse. So if we're going to go up in our elevators right now, it's going to change the way we view things. So just like in a movie, the murderer in the movie, we can separate out the character from the actor. We don't think that the actor is evil. We think the actor was playing a role. And so as we go up on our elevators to the penthouse, that's how we need to view that soul, right? So that soul came to Earth to play a part for all of our greater good. And it's a very hard part to play when we're picking our lives, which we do. We kind of pick our storyline before we come into Earth and become a human. There are some people who are courageous enough to pick a really difficult life. And they come here and they do horrible, atrocious things. And then they go back and they become that soul again, and they heal. and they kind of just add that to their life experience. And so on this earth level, what they do is horrible and, tragic, and they do victimize others. But on the higher level, on the soul level, where we're all just actor, the actor part of us, we're not playing the character, we really do all understand that there's no good or bad from that level, because we don't actually die. Here we're playing a temporary role, and there we are our true soul, immortal self, right? That doesn't even need healing because we're always perfect and whole. So I know that can be really difficult to hear for a lot of people, but that's how I see it, and that's been my experience in speaking with these people. It's that we've all been the victim and the victimizer in many of our lives. We've all done that, and we do it for the greater good. Do you want me to talk about that a little bit, how that could be for the greater good?
Well, actually, that was going to be one of my questions. Is it for like an evolution of consciousness, of this physicality? What, like if somebody were hearing that and they were kind of like, yeah, right. Well, like, what would be the purpose of that? So yes, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah. So on this greater level, basically what we can view the outer world as is an extension of our insides. So that kind of plays out as if we are battling with ourselves, right? If we're bullying ourselves or saying in our heads mean things to ourselves, like, oh, you're stupid, or you're fat, or can't believe you did this, or I hate you. A lot of people have this kind of self-loathing, self-hate thing. And also just casual negative remarks to yourself. Well, that physically, it really does harm you. It harms your cells, it harms your consciousness. And so from a greater spiritual perspective, as long as we humans have some of that going on, we're going to see that portrayed in our outer world. We're going to see war, we're going to see murder, we're going to see rape, we're going to see all these horrible things, because it's just a way of showing us what we're doing to ourselves. And it's a little bit abstract, but it's really just a way of making known what it is we're suppressing in ourselves. It's basically like, if we don't deal with ourselves and our own emotions and treat ourselves in a healthy way, that's going to be brought up in the outer world so that we can see it. So you can kind of see this working as well with yourself. So if you, like, we'll take me for instance. I never really liked violent movies or anything, but now I have such a small tolerance for them. I can't be in the room. I don't enjoy watching war. I don't enjoy negative talk or gossip. And as my consciousness has evolved, as I've gotten healthier with my own self-talk, with my own self-care, I don't see it as much in the world. It doesn't come up as much, and I don't put myself in the position to view it as much. So every single person has that own mechanism within themselves, and so as we as a whole go away from harming ourselves, we will see less in the outer world, and it will just come up less.
Wow. It's like a mirror if we choose to look at it that way. It's reflective. And it's interesting you say that, because, for example, people who are looking for peace by violent protests, it's a very mixed message, I guess you could say. Or you've heard of people being killed in the name of peace, or some, whether it's religious or political or some agenda. And I think on that physical plane, it kind of riles up what's in us, or what's maybe the lowest common denominator or something. It seems to me, and then it becomes much harder. I mean, I remember, for example, 9/11. It was an interesting combination of just horror and fear, but then there was this overlay of compassion. But it was
Mm.
still very mixed kind of messages, because as much compassion, there was as much compassion that came out of that. It sort of matched each other to me. So I wonder, did the compassion beat out by one iota the fear? I
Mm.
don't know. I don't know. And maybe that's
Mm.
evidenced by what each of us sees in the world. Actually, Rachel,
Mm.
you don't see much. You don't see much of the crap out there, do you? Which is great. I'd like to have sort of those kind of blinders on a regular basis.
Mm. I'm I'm wondering I'm wondering about the victim. So now you've led us on this wonderful journey up this elevator where we get this higher perspective. However, when we're on Earth and our family or friend member has been murdered or have taken their own life, um, what can you share? Can you speak to that? What kind of perspective can we take from that? And I could speculate here, but I'm going to put this to you and let you share some words of condolence and comfort to people out there who may be watching who've had this tragic experience happen.
Sure. So I'll talk about people who've been murdered first, and then we'll go to suicide because they're a little different. I was actually in Newtown when the Newtown shooting happened, the Sandy Hook shooting a couple of years ago, and it was, very, very tragic event. I mean, this is children dying en masse in a school where you never think something like that's going to happen, especially to these young, young children. And of course, I was sad, obviously. You can't not be sad about that. But since I do have this perspective, where I went to is that, first of all, these kids are fine. When you die, you're fine. You're wonderful. You're amazing because you go back to your whole state. And again, you have that perspective that, oh, that was a job I went to do, and now it's over, and now I'm back home, and now I can do whatever I want. So that's kind of a comforting thing to know, that if your loved one isn't here anymore, they're amazing. They're doing great, and they have, been restored to their whole full self, no matter what happened to them, no matter how they died. But another thing is the souls who choose to go into a life where something tragic happens, they're aware of that. They're not going in blind. They're not going in to be victimized on the greater level. They're just playing that part. So just like in that movie again, the murder victim doesn't actually die, right? It's just the character who dies. And that actor, that soul, moves on to play other parts. The other thing is we can kind of flip the victimization feeling, because we can often go to that place where we feel horrible for the person who died. Oh my God, it's so terrible how that happened, why that happened, and we can get stuck in that loop of guilt, wondering what we could have done, wondering how things could be different, wondering how we can change the world, which can be a good catalyst for growth, but getting stuck there is not beneficial to that soul or to us, because they signed up for that. They knew what they were getting into. So it's much healthier to look at them almost like a hero. They came in to show us that this is still possible on this earth, right? They came in to illuminate this issue. Like these children, they came in, and so much good has come out of what's happened with gun laws and people being aware of all sorts of issues, right? No matter what side you're on or politically, whatever.
Right. Mental health issues. It's brought up a lot.
Yeah. So looking at them as a hero who came in full well knowing what was going to happen, even if they were a child when it occurred, is the way that I choose to look at it. And again, having spoken to many of these children, because I did work in that area and have talked to people who knew the kids, they're great. It's just a role that we play here, and our souls are immortal. They're fine, and everything is okay. And you know, even the families, they all know on a soul level what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. So would it be correct to say that anything bad that happens is really an opportunity for us living our lives on Earth to learn from that, to experience that, to take that experience and reach deeper into ourselves, to connect with our higher self, and to bring out the best within us, and move forward using this bad, horrible thing that's happened and affected us as a springboard for personal growth and maybe societal growth?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
You know, it's interesting. It's a totally interesting perspective, and not to play devil's advocate, but I know I like to kind of think ahead what some viewers or some people think about that. You know, where when someone would say, "Oh, well, yeah, that's really nice," so that you can't really feel the full experience of about it. Sure, that would be a great perspective to take. What do you deal? How would you work with a person or encounter somebody who feels the need, and I think it's very seductive in a way to get really stuck and mired in that energy because it is so intense. It almost feels what's the word? I'm sorry, I saw I was muted there for a second. Like you're betraying the 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 person who's died if you don't stay in that place. And that's where I get to see people who grieve and then sometimes move into complicated grief because they can't move out of that. I do know that sometimes messages from the other side, I've talked to people who have gone to mediums who have validated the existence, and they're very healthy, as you talk about, existence on the other side, and in an instant you can see that healing take place, because that's what the survivors seem to want to know is, you know, how are they? Are they hurting? We tend to project a physicality onto the people in the afterlife as if it's the same thing, and I don't think we can fathom. So really there were a couple questions there, like how would you work with or deal with a person who just felt that was pie in the sky thinking and there's no way that they could move themselves out of that grief?
Well, I think the first question I would ask is, what would the person who died want for you? You know, would they want you to live? Would they want you to be a whole person and to be happy and to pursue your dreams? Or would they really want you to be stuck in this mindset? And that leaves the, you know, the afterlife out of it, really. It's more just like, okay, you're honoring your connection to that person. But I would advocate sending them to a medium, you know, and I mean, I've been on the other side of that. I've been the medium to countless families who've lost a loved one, and I do see that real relief of knowing, because they just want to know they're okay. That's all they really want to know. And so then when you can give that to someone with details that they understand, you know, it's amazing. So go see a medium if you're in this spot. And also just realize it's okay to feel. I mean, I feel, even though I know all of this stuff, I cry when my loved ones die. I grieve for them because it's part of being human. We're here to feel things, so there's nothing wrong with grieving. You just don't want to stay there forever, because then you're denying your own life, you know?
And Rachel, for the people left behind who have anger at the injustice and feel like it was taken, you know, my loved one was taken away from me unjustly, and they can't let go of that anger, and maybe that person is still walking freely, maybe they're in prison, maybe they're dead. Whatever the case, they have this anger. And what we know about emotions is that we can get addicted to our emotions. And if you could speak on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is also another case of the mirroring, where they can only really hold on to anger at another person if they're feeling anger toward themselves. So that's something to look at. You know, perhaps they're feeling guilty about what they have done in the past. You know, it's really an internal thing. Whenever we're feeling something outwardly, it's always because we're feeling it to ourselves. So seeing a good therapist can help, you know, releasing all of those past judgments on themselves. That's really the place to go. I understand anger towards the outside world, and especially to someone you see who's victimized you or someone you loved. But again, it doesn't help you. It doesn't bring the person back. And so really addressing it as an internal issue is probably what I would suggest.
One of the things that I've seen too is, you know, we humans are like meaning-making machines, and we can make meaning that serves us, or we can make meaning that doesn't serve us very well. And so, you know, when I've seen people who have made it through really unspeakable circumstances, they've done something to honor this person's life. They've done something. Those are the people that seem to fare much better with grief and go on to have a life with probably a gaping hole, but still have a life that could be enviable. And that's because they've honored or made meaning. And you see that, if you remember, I don't know if you're my age or so, but if you remember that story of Adam Walsh, where his father, he was one of the, back in the, I want to say the 70s or so, maybe early 80s, when children were being abducted, and they found this child who had been abducted and, you know, brutally murdered. His father went on to become that host for many, many years of America's Most Wanted. So the way he kind of avenged, I guess you could say, the death of his son is he put it into some kind of action to be able to go find these people. And over the years, they talk about, I'm sorry, I think Adam was the father, Ryan might have been the son. But this man has been a crusader for finding child predators and has done amazing good in the world, and has pulled, I mean, hundreds of people off the streets who might be otherwise out there abusing. So to me, that's an example of somebody who can maybe turn their rage, but I think at some point that rage, if it is not healed or somehow made peace with, will destroy versus serve.
That's it's a lot of energy, and I think it was a great example, Patty, because instead of letting that fester and grow and come out in ways that it would be unhealthy, he used that incredible power from the energy and directed it in a way that is helping. So it's a powerful force, that strong emotions carry a lot of energy, and if we can learn how to use that energy in ways that create good, that might be the trick. Now, Rachel, we haven't talked about suicide yet, and I want to get to that. But before we do, I just want to do a quick shout out to our audience. So I want to say hello to Elizabeth Herlo-Hanna, Catherine Holland, John Jerkowitz, welcome. Roland Takaoka is here. And George, hello. Roseanne Jansen, nice to have you here. And Leslie Robertson. Leslie's just asked a question, and maybe we can answer this question and then move on to suicide. So Leslie's wondering, she's asking if the people who die violently feel pain.
That's a good question. So right now I'm kind of connecting in with that, and normally the person will leave their body before the actual event, kind of like how we can dissociate, when trauma is happening to us, so they won't feel pain. Some souls choose to feel pain, and that's, so there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad, but most don't and some do is really the best I can answer there.
I was muted. There we go.
Yeah, I was muted too. I'd be one of those who is so totally not feeling the pain. I'm out. I'm out as soon as I know it's coming.
Great. I think there's a great movie out there, and Can Wait, and it's a cute little story about a new angel who pops in and pops the soul out of the body because it was going to experience a tragic car crash, and he didn't want this poor fellow to die. And it turned out he wouldn't have died, so there's a big kerfuffle and a fun, interesting show. But to get back to the topic, suicide. You said it's a little bit different than murderers. So I know there's many parents out there whose child, or who, if your sibling or if your friend commits suicide, you really wonder. I think the religious texts tell us that this is not an okay thing to do, and that if you do this after you've been gifted a life, then this is something that may have repercussions when you die. So if you could speak to that, Rachel.
Yeah, so that's something that I grew up learning as well. And when I first started speaking with souls who have left that way, it's not actually what I've encountered. So typically, someone will leave this life via suicide if they're in tremendous pain, right? Like, it's not just some random thing that you do on a Sunday. It's something that you normally calculate and do with a lot of thought, and normally because you cannot stand living here anymore because of some reason. And so what I have found when I've connected with these souls is that I feel the pain first when I go and talk to them. I feel the pressure of what they felt before they left. And then when they go into the afterlife, there's normally a transition period where they are in solitude and they get to heal and unwind for however long they want. It's not forced, it's not a punishment, it's just that they are understanding what went on in this lifetime. And souls who don't commit suicide have this option as well. So we're kind of left to, it's almost like going on an eco retreat after we die. We get to really process before we go back into our normal soul family party like atmosphere or whatever that soul wants to do. That's typically what I find, and it's a very pleasant, healing kind of environment. There's no punishment. There's nothing taboo about it. And in fact, we all have many parts in our life where we can exit. So we plan in exit zones for ourselves, and we all have this option available to us to leave whenever we want, whether it's stepping in front of a bus or getting on a plane that we know is going to go down, or by suicide. So we are always in control anyway. It's just that some people choose to leave via suicide before they come into this life. They know that that's going to happen to them. Some of them take their life without necessarily having that be the major plan for themselves, but it's always an option, and it's not looked down upon. And these souls are given ample time to heal and come back to their full selves if they need that.
So, Rachel, I'm sure you have a question too, Misty. I see you're still muted though. So, when we hear, whether it's from a religious or cultural perspective, that suicide is bad and wrong and will be punished, your experience is none of that is so.
Yeah, that's been my experience, and I've spoken with many souls who have departed via suicide, and I've never heard of anything like that personally. You know, there are a lot of things in religion that are really there just to kind of condition us to be a certain way. And, you know, suicide is very detrimental to those remaining on the earth plane. And so none of us wants anyone to leave that way, especially if that person has a family and financial obligations. It's not a very clean way to go because there's often no lead time, no planning time. So it would make sense that we're societally conditioning people not to want to leave like that. And perhaps that's why that started. I don't know.
Sure. Although, you know, back to your mirror and reflection. Oh, I'm sorry, Misty. I was just going to say, when a suicide happens, it again reminds us where we may be able to bring some light to that scenario, some help to that scenario, and change a thing if possible, or change a life.
Exactly. Yeah. Those people, you know, living silently in pain doesn't give everyone else an opportunity to really jump in and do something and change systems. And, you know, we take notice when people commit suicide, and it's a shame that this still has to be this way, that we have to have suicide and murders to really jump into action on certain issues. But unfortunately, it does seem to catalyze us, right, and bring us together.
Rachel, I have a few more questions from our viewers, and so another one from Leslie. Does a person suicide, and just Leslie is studying suicidology, so this is a topic dear to her. So does a person who commits suicide do it for the benefit maybe of the loved ones they leave behind? That is, the life of the loved ones would be worse if they stay.
I think that, you know, every person's reason for committing suicide is going to be a little bit different. I could see that happening, but I've never spoken to anyone, any soul, that that's been the case for. Normally it's just because they feel so alone, they feel so much pain, they feel like they don't belong or that they're unlovable. That's normally what I have found, and that they just want to escape that, and it's really just about escaping the pain that they're feeling in their life. And they feel awful about, I mean, what makes it so difficult is leaving behind loved ones.
And there's another question from Julie. Nice to see you here, Julie. She's wondering if you could speak to the never solved disappearances and deaths.
Sure. So, you know, we're all here for a reason. We're all contributing to everyone else. And there are countless ways to be here on Earth, right? We can be a doctor, we can be a gardener, we can come in and die young, we can come in and die old, we can be a murderer, we can be a victim of horrible things. I mean, we can choose any kind of life we want, and it's all affecting everyone else's life. And so some people come and will choose to be taken away and never seen of again because that's what's in their highest good, and that's what their family members agreed to. So we're all living here by agreement, and yeah. So
yeah,
does that make sense?
I'm just going to jump in there because I know when we spoke months ago, you talked about this, and I'd like you to expand on it since it was just brought up. And it's the idea that of this contract or this agreement that we make with people on the other side before we incarnate. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. Basically, everything is a contract or an agreement, and like when we're wanting to come into a new life, we pick the parents that are most appropriate for us, and we kind of contract with the other people who will be alive and our peers, and it's all mapped out, basically. Things can differ, but that differs by agreement as well. So contracts are updated moment by moment, and so nothing's really a surprise at the soul level. We always know what's going to happen. It's just the character part of us that's experiencing it as a new thing or as an unexpected thing. And it's all for everyone's highest good. We never, ever do anything for a bad reason. Bad doesn't exist on the soul level. Everything is just experience, and it's neutral. So we only experience that polarity of bad and good here, and then at the soul level, everything is growing us. Everything is experience. Is that kind of what you wanted to talk about? It's been a while since we talked.
I think you explained it. I think you explained it very well, and it was making me think of well, an experience that I've had numerous times in life, and I've come to this conclusion now. So when myself as a person am walking this path on earth, and I think I should be going down this direction, and I've made a plan, I'm going here, and for whatever reason there's barrier, and I came up with this saying, well, if you're doing something that's really hard, well, you're just doing it wrong, because I really feel that maybe it doesn't have to be hard, or maybe it's been a while since I thought this. It's kind of become a part of me now, but it's almost a symbol to me now that I'm going down the wrong path. And if so, maybe my soul path isn't there, I don't know, but for whatever reason, when you hit a wall so many times, you tend to turn around and look for another door to go out instead of going down that same path. And then slowly, when you talk about this soul purpose, we make our way through life, and sometimes our human idea of what we should be doing and our, I'm guessing here, soul idea of what we should be doing are different. And would you care to speak about how we navigate and how those come together, and just how all that fits in, how we play out our soul contract here?
Sure. So, you did bring up the fact that there's a difference often between what our head wants for us, what we think we should be doing, and then what is kind of the bigger piece moving us. Right? It almost feels like we're being moved sometimes, and it's a little strange. So society, our conditioning, our parents, our upbringing, all of that can contribute to what we think we should be doing and what we think we want. And I kind of see that as it's like a layer that's kind of built up around us. It's like mud stuck to us. And normally, as we get more in touch with our true self, our inner self, we'll realize that, well, maybe I don't want a big house, or maybe I don't want to be a lawyer or a business person, or maybe I don't need $1 million or to win the lottery. This really makes me happy. Like, my true self, just hanging at the beach makes me happy, or going for a walk. And so you kind of can, as you grow, take off bits of that mud to align more with your true self. And as you do that, you become one with that bigger piece that seems to be moving you. You can resist that as well by packing more mud on and kind of living into make your parents happy or your religion happy, or when you basically give your power to an outside source, you're going to stick more mud on you. When you give your power to your inner truth and your inner happiness and what really fills you up truthfully, I like that word truth, obviously, you take the mud off and you become one with the bigger part of you that does have all the power. You empower yourself. And by doing that, you really grant yourself access to your desired path. But not everyone is here to do that, right? A lot of people are here to experience the mud, and that's totally fine. There's nothing unspiritual about that on a greater level. People here who do identify with wanting to live their purpose, though, they're going to want to take the mud off and go that route. But on a higher level, there's nothing different or wrong between the two.
It's interesting that you said that, because my next question was going to be, what about people who die and they feel that they haven't lived their dream? They feel they haven't been authentic to their true calling. They feel that they've been caught up in the mud, to use your example of life, and at the end they feel like maybe a bit of a failure, or maybe they made a mistake that they didn't have resolve with. Maybe they were one of these bad people, and can you speak to that?
Yeah, so when they die and they get to the other side, they'll realize, oh, that was just a game. I was just playing a character. I'm still me, whole. You know, my soul is still here. There's no way you can't be unspiritual at that level, because that's just who you are. And they could go and do it again if they want to live a different way. But they probably did fulfill their character's role perfectly, right? And that's just how that character wanted to experience life. And that, again, can often help the people around them, because they can see, oh gosh, my dad died, he didn't feel fulfilled, so maybe I should make different choices now, right? So everyone's life does impact everyone else in a positive way if we look at it like that. And so it's all choice, and we can do this as many times as we want.
At some point, I'm sure people want to get off the merry-go-round, and that is you know, that kind of dissolving into the oneness, so they say. And you know, I think it's one of those things that you know, the human experience and the soul level experience, sometimes, as you say, they're aligned, and sometimes there's discord, or at least on this level, that's how we see it. So, you know, it begs the question, how much do you really want to look outside of this physical experience to see what's going on? And I know that's the kind of stuff that you teach other people to do, is to how to really tap in to, and you use an amazing approach, an amazing medium, which is intuitive art, to help people tap into, quote, what they're supposed to be doing, or maybe even helping give them the courage to go after what they want. Can you share with us, as I see we're heading towards the top of the hour, but I would like to talk a little bit about what you do, because it's really an extension of what we're talking about here as well. Unless, Misty, you had some other questions. Death, murder,
no,
suicide.
I would say let's jump into living a fulfilled life, and I know Rachel's a fabulous person who can help take us there. So please, Rachel, share, and don't forget to mention, Rachel created was the mainstay of an afterlife anthology, poetry all about the afterlife. So please speak to that as well, and we're looking forward to helping get that out there to more people.
Sure. So I've had another life in this life as a publisher of poetry, and we created an anthology of poems about the afterlife called No Fresh Cut Flowers, and it's contributed by poets all around the world who are very well known and up and coming poets, and it's just a beautiful artistic take on what happens after you die, ode to loved ones. It's just a beautiful remembrance of people and of the attitude and the feeling, and it's kind of like, poets are so special with their words and what they can evoke, and so I thought poetry was a really good way to summarize and get the take on the afterlife. There's also photographs in there, and it's really great. You can get it on Amazon. It's called No Fresh Cut Flowers, an Afterlife Anthology, and it even comes with a soundtrack. So we had musicians write music about the topic of the afterlife, and it's all instrumental, and you can read it while listening to the soundtrack if you like. It's pretty cool.
Wonderful. I'm curious about the title, No Fresh Cut Flowers. Why that title?
Yeah, so that's the title of one of the poems, and I just thought it was a beautiful, because when you go to a cemetery, right, there are often lots of flowers, and you always see that one grave with, you know, dead flowers or no flowers, and I think that the poet was trying to capture that feeling of like a lonely gravestone, no fresh cut flowers, which, you know, it's poetry's all about bringing out emotion, and I think that does it really well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so tell us a little bit about... Oh, go ahead.
I think we're both thinking the same. We want to hear more about your intuitive art and how you work with people to allow them to tap into their intuition, which I think we can all agree is when we're listening to our intuition, that's when we're really following our soul's calling and following that soul's purpose, and we're not bringing on more mud. So please go ahead and share what you do there.
No more mud.
I love that. Yeah, so you know, you kind of said the word intuitive. When we're listening to our intuition, we're aligning with that big part of us because that's how it communicates. So our higher self is what I like to call our soul, or that energy that moves us around in the big way. And the problem with intuition, though, is that sometimes it can be hard to hear. It can be hard to know why our intuition wants us to go a certain way or doesn't. Often I find myself fighting with it. Like, I'll get a yes intuition about something and I won't want to go. Or I'll get a no intuition about something and I'll be mad. I'll be like, why can't I go do this? Why isn't that in my best interest? And, you know, if I'm having that kind of battle at times, and, you know, I've got a lifetime of understanding all of this in a greater way, most people are not making decisions based on their intuition because there's not enough to go on. They don't know the why, they don't know the how, and it's kind of like too much of a leap of faith to follow. And so with intuitive art, we've got this easy 3-step process of getting more information from that same higher self. It's kind of like turning that yes or no intuition into a whole language, where you can have a two-way conversation with your higher self and get more details so that you can make a decision that your logical mind can also be on board with, which I think is really valuable for people. And so it has nothing to do with making beautiful art either. It's more just like a tool. It's a scribble that you can read and put words to.
Mm-hmm. And do you have one, I know I've done some of this work with you before, do you have an example handy, or could you pop somewhere and get one to show? Because you don't have to be, I just want our audience to know, you don't have to be any kind of an artist to make this work for you. It's basically just putting color on paper.
Yep, so you do it with your eyes closed, and you just scribble. And your hand is in charge. So you have your eyes closed, you're reaching for your colors, you scribble whatever your hand wants you to do, and then you open your eyes and you can read the drawing. So it's not really about making art, it's just about using color as your new language for understanding your higher self. And I do give away a free class as well. Is that okay to share?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yes, please.
You can go to intuitiveartacademy.com and get a free class, and it'll teach you everything, how to decode, how to do the drawing, and talk to your higher self so that you can ask any question about the afterlife, your loved ones, your own soul path, little things. What do you want to have for breakfast? Whatever you want.
Yeah. Basically, it's just a medium, so it's a pathway, something you can use to connect with higher self. And people meditate, they do yoga, they go into trance, they dance. There's so many ways to get there, and this is just another way a way that Rachel has created through her Intuitive Art Academy that will allow you to connect with your intuition, that will allow you to connect with your higher self, that will allow you to connect more fully with life. And at the end of the day, that's why Patty and I do what we do. We talk about death because we want you to connect more fully with life and to have a greater understanding. We finished our hospice series, and we're now offering that in a bigger way to the world so people can understand how to be with the dying, and they can feel okay to be close to someone who is dying. And this whole Afterlife series has been about understanding the other side so that you don't have fear when you're with someone who's dying, that they may be going to a place that's not supportive. So really at the end of the day, we're all about life, and we sincerely thank all our viewers and all our supporters for being with us, for having the courage to join us on this journey in our exploration of death, dying, grief, and loss. And I want to thank you deeply, Rachel Archelaus. You do fabulous, fabulous work in the world. I'd love to have you back here. I know we'll be staying in touch. And Patty, I'm going to turn it over to you to take us out.
Absolutely. Well, Rachel, yes, I want to echo Misty's sentiments. It's wonderful to meet somebody that is kind of in a lifelong sort of way, been so connected and so willing to share this information. It makes life a lot lighter, a lot easier, and makes life make more sense when we're looking at death and these really, really tough questions. So thanks for doing that for us. And is there anything else you want to share about what people can get from you before we say goodbye? Or did you get everything?
I think we got everything. Intuitive Art Academy is where you can get your free class, or you can just go to intuitiveart.com to learn more. And I just want to thank you guys so much. This is such an amazing pleasure for me to talk about all of this, and I want to thank you just so much for having me on.
Absolutely, Rachel. Well, stay tuned because we'll probably be calling you back. We know that you've got some really good insights and maybe a line. I don't know, that curtain behind you, I'm thinking maybe a wizard's going to pop out or something in just a minute. I don't know, but that would be great too. So thank you again, and it's Misty Lynn at bittersweetblessing.com and Patty Burgess at doingdeathdifferently.com. We are thrilled that you have joined us and that you've taken the time to listen. So we'll see you next time. We are on break. Go ahead.
Okay, one more thing. I just wanted to bring attention to the Afterlife Conference, which is happening in St. Louis the middle of May. And I think if you register, you can use the promo code DeathChicks, and you'll get a little bit of a discount there. So we're really encouraging our viewers and our audience, if you're interested in the afterlife, this is the conference where it's bringing it all together. Terry Daniels, she brings together the grief part of it. She brings together the people who've had near-death experiences. There's mediums. You can get readings there. Pretty much anything that has to do with the afterlife or even death in the bigger perspective. It's happening there. So please take a look at that site. And I think it's afterlifeconference.com. And if not, just Google Afterlife Conference and it's going to come up.
Well, and also to add to that, it's bringing together science, clergy, and many people that have anything to do with the afterlife, and bringing together sort of a conversation where we can, I don't know, I wouldn't say legitimize, but to begin to really explore a little bit more and kind of bring it into the mainstream, because, you know, is this all there is? So let's talk a little bit more about it. Anyway, take care, everybody. That's our show. We're on break for a while, but we'll let you know when we're coming back. And one more thing, right? Did you say you had one more thing?
No, I was waiting.
We're never leaving you.
But I wanted to, yeah, we're saying goodbye. We'll see you soon. We're around if you need us.
That's right. We'll be in touch. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.